Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the FighterHeart Podcast. I'm Joe Rizzo.
I'm Ryan Costello.
And as you know, everyone has a fighter heart within them, and everyone has a story to tell. Today, we're sitting down with Megan McGee.
Hello.
Hello, Megan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great.
So what we like to do here is we like to get on a timeline.
Okay.
So maybe start at the beginning. Where are you from?
Okay. So I'm from New York. I'm a New York native. I was born in 2003, so I'm 19 now. And I think for a 19-year-old, I'm doing pretty well for myself. And I think it's kind of due to the things I've been through and the things I've had to overcome.
Well, first of all, before you go into it, actually, I want to know, when you hear fighter heart, what do you think of? Like, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means somebody with a strong heart and a fighter heart, someone who's been through something, and that's everyone. Like you guys were saying, everybody has a fighter heart, everybody has a story, and some people aren't willing to tell it, but, everybody has a story, whether you hear it or not. So, yeah.
Cool. So you were born, you said 03.
Yes.
And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a couple different places around the island. Started out in Setauket. I was born in Setauket. My family had their house there. My mother grew up in Setauket, so it's kind of where my whole family has grown up and started and came from, so it's pretty cool. It's a beautiful area. And I just moved out of Setauket recently, so I'm missing that. It's a great town, and I grew up there, so I love it. So,
Where's Setauket? I'm not even sure.
It's, I don't even know how to explain it. It's kind of,
Is it like east?
No, I live out east now, so I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's by like Port Jeff Station, around there. Oldfield, places like that, yeah.
Okay, cool. And now where are you at?
Now I'm out east, out towards the Hamptons.
Oh.
Yes.
So you're further out. How long took you a while to get here?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of back and forth. I was in Setauket, then Rocky Point, back to Setauket, and now back out east, so.
You're all over.
All over, yeah. Yeah.
So how do you, what's your fighter heart story?
So when I was 2 years old, my dad passed away, and I believe it was from a heart attack, and my dad was a firefighter, so he had a lot of medical issues. He had a really bad fall off a ladder. He had back problems. He had diabetes. He had, smoke inhalation problems because of that. But it seemed like he passed away kind of maybe from the stress of it, or it could have been a heart attack relating to diabetes. They're not really sure. So my whole life I grew up hearing, well, how could you miss him if you were only a baby? And, how does it affect you if you didn't really know him? And I don't think people seem to understand. I was a baby. I don't really remember him, which is unfortunate, but I kind of live for him every day, and I will always have a memory of him, and it's always going to be a hole in my heart. When I was 16 and all my friends were having their sweet 16s and their father-daughter dances, I didn't get that. And I would always kind of sit there and tear up and be like, oh, well, this is something I'm going to have to sit out of. Even someday, I hope someday I get married, but I'm not going to have a dad to walk me down the aisle. So it's just things like that kind of get to me all the time, because I think about him every single day. I have his picture next to my bed and his firefighter jackets that I wear all the time because it reminds me of him and it makes me happy. And I might not know him personally, but, I hear the stories and I have the pictures and home videos and things like that. So
it's like you've created almost a memory based on everything you've seen.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, at the end of the day, he was a firefighter and an EMT. So he saved a lot of lives in the time that he was here, and he did something really important and amazing with his life. And he married my mom and had me, so there's that too. That's a pretty big accomplishment. And I do really think if he was here, he would be proud, and he would be like, whoa, because I do a lot of things that a lot of 19-year-olds don't do. Growing up with only a mother was different and hard. And
yeah, did kids in school say anything? Or
Not really kids in school. I kind of tried to always keep it like to myself because, you know, once someone finds out, it's the whole thing of, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. And I can't count how many times I've heard that in my life, not just because of my dad. I've lost a lot of people, but, you know, every time someone finds out, even now, if I go on a date, oh, what about your parents? Oh, well, my dad passed away. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm like, I've heard that a lot. And it doesn't help. I'm sorry doesn't help. I'm sorry isn't going to bring him back. Thank you, but I didn't need to hear that again. So it's different growing up without a dad. And my mom is great. She took care of me, but we were under a lot of financial strain, only having one income. She had to stay home to raise me, you know, until I was old enough to kind of stay home alone. So she wasn't working as much as some people would work. And I grew up financially struggling. So that kind of taught me a lot. Even now, I'm 19. As soon as I turned 18, I still live with my mom, but I pay bills on my own. I pay my rent. I pay my car insurance. I pay for my gas, my food, everything. And as much as it sucks growing up like that, it taught me a lot, where now I am much more financially smart, and I would like to say financially stable, but not quite yet. We're getting there though. And it is a really different way of growing up without a dad. You know, every time I would go to my friend's house, my friends would be like, this is my dad. And then they'd come over and I'd be like, this is my mom. I don't have a dad. And little kids especially, like when I was in kindergarten, if I told someone I didn't have a dad, they'd look at me like I had two heads, you know? So like,
people probably get weird and like awkward too. Like,
yeah, definitely.
They don't know
like,
what to say.
Yeah, like it's either like, I'm sorry, or they just kind of don't know what to say. Like even now I'm in college and I have met so many great people in college, but it always comes up at some point, you know, it's like, what do your parents do? Or, you know, blah, blah, blah. And every time I say it, it's still like they look at me like I have two heads. I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't have a dad. Like, what do you want from my life? Or occasionally I let the joke slip out about not having a dad, and everybody looks at me like I'm insane. And I'm like, listen, I'm just coping. It's funny. You can laugh. You know.
How old do you think you were when you noticed that other kids? Did you know right away? Was it like when you got to school that
I think it was kind of right away, or I think it was probably when I started getting to school. But even before school, you know, like family events, all my cousins would have their dads, and, you know, my friends before that. So, but I think probably more so when I started going to school, because then I was old enough to kind of understand, and I was getting to be 5 and 6. And I think that was also around the time where I was old enough to realize dad's not coming home, because I was 2. I don't even remember if my dad told me, or my mom. I don't remember if my mom told me. I don't remember her telling me I was a baby. You know, I couldn't talk. I couldn't walk. So it's like, I think probably that was around the same time I started realizing, like, what death meant. And, like, okay, dad isn't coming home, or I'm not going to have a dad forever, and this is a final thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you don't remember having those thoughts, do you?
I don't, not at all. You know, I do remember crying to my mom when I was really little and being like, where's dad? I miss dad. And funny enough, I remember the day of his funeral, like weirdly.
When you were 2?
Yeah, like a weird memory. And I didn't go to his funeral. My mom chose not to bring me, so she left me at home with a babysitter. So I remember being at home with a babysitter, and that's so weird to me that that's the only day from my entire childhood, you know, up until like age 6 or 7 that I remember. I just remember that the babysitter was like horrible. She just like sat me down, let me watch TV, burnt my mac and cheese, and it was like a horrible night. And I was just like, where's mom? You know, like, and I just remember that night, and I never understood why I remembered that until a couple years ago. I spoke to my mom about it, and I was like, did you leave me with this one babysitter one night? And she was like, oh yeah. And I was like, well, where did you go? And she was like, that was your dad's funeral. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, why would I remember that?
To you. It was
no,
you brought it up. That's
it
crazy.
wasn't even, you know, she never really brings it up, which is completely understandable. You know, like they were definitely like soulmates, you know, like every psychic she's seen and whatever, they were like totally like in love with each other and soulmates. So she never really brings him up. So then when I brought that up and I found out that it was the day of his funeral, I was like, that's insane. Like, how did I remember all that? You know, like, but
you said she doesn't really bring him up at all?
Not really. I mean, she did, you know, like my family didn't want to bring him up, but she did, because she wanted to keep the memory alive and, you know, tell me about him and, you know, tell me stories. And now that I'm older, I get to hear, you know, the bigger stories and things like that. So she would bring him up, but not that much, because I'm sure it makes her sad to talk about. It's understandable, you know. So yeah.
So you're in school. What are you majoring?
I am in school. I'm actually a theater major. So I've gotten a lot of doubt about that, you know, because it's always like, well, do you have a plan B? What are you going to do with an associate's degree in theater? Like, I very recently had my family telling me to drop out. They were like, you should drop out and get a full-time job because money will serve you better than your degree will. And I was like, I can't believe they just said that.
How close are you to graduating?
I am halfway through my associate's degree right now. So pretty
far in,
significantly far in, you know.
To give up.
I've done a lot of my credits and worked really hard. I've never been a school person, but since I got to college, that changed for me, and I started putting in a lot of effort. So to hear that from my family was like, whoa, like, how could you even say that? You know, like, I know you don't like theater and I know you don't support theater, but I think theater probably saved my life. Like, if I did not have theater, I would be completely lost in this world.
When did you first get introduced to it?
I want to say I was pretty young. I was probably like 4 or 5 years old, and my mom, my mom took me to see a play, and that's how it all started, and now I'm here. And I teach drama now, so that's pretty cool because that's something I've always been interested in as well. But my mom took me to see a play, and I was just like amazed, and I saw those people on stage, and I said to my mom, I want to do that. So she signed me up for acting classes, and it took off. And when I was a baby, not even a baby, toddler, kindergarten, I was so shy. I did not talk to anybody, not even my own family. Like, I think that was a result of my dad passing away. It was just like, that's a trauma, you know. When you lose a parent or even anyone, it's something is traumatic. So I did not talk for like my early childhood. I did not talk at all. I would literally just look at people and like not say anything. They would talk to me, I wouldn't respond. But when I started getting into theater, I started slowly coming out of that shell and talking to people and making friends, and I think it truly is why I am who I am today. It brought me out of my shell. I have had amazing theater teachers that just really worked with me hard. They dug deep. They got me to come out of my shell. You know, like, if you asked me like 10 years ago if I thought I'd be doing something like this, I would have like laughed. I would have been like, hell no. But now I'm doing things like this. I teach drama, which requires standing up in front of a class.
How old are your students?
I've taught between the ages of, I want to say 4 all the way up to probably 17. So
wow.
I have a wide range. Right now, my current class is the 7 to 12 range. So it's definitely a little easier to teach children because they're not, you know, really sure about everything. It's harder to teach kids that are closer to my age because I'm more worried about, like, they're judging me. But they're really not. They're just there to learn how to act. And I want to be that acting teacher for them the way that my acting teachers were there for me. Because I truly think acting and theater saved my life. If I didn't have acting and theater, like, I might have been like a mute for my entire life, or I just might not be here altogether. It's a beautiful thing. It really is.
Do you remember your first, like, on-stage performance?
I do. I think I did classes for a long time when I was like 6 to 12, probably 5 to 12. And then finally my teacher was like, I think we should put you on stage and you should be involved in the summer show. And I was like, okay, I guess. So my first show was in 2015, and it was a performance of The Pied Piper. And I was playing 2 roles. I think I was a child in the ensemble and, get this, a rat. So I do remember that.
What's Pied Piper? I know it from Silicon Valley. You ever see that?
I have a vague memory of it. Honestly, I think it's something happens in the town where the kids and the families are trying to like save the town. Oh. I think they're trying to save the town from a rat infestation, actually. I don't really remember, but okay. It's something along those lines. So I vaguely remember that, and I never had a nerve. Like, I was just like, I'm going to go on stage. Actually, I'm going right after this. I'm going to a callback for an audition tonight.
Oh, wow. Good luck for what?
Thank you. It's for this Christmas play called Christmas at the Evergreen Mall. So I believe it's something that they wrote, which is exciting. But I've never had a nerve. Like, even I go to auditions and put my poker face on, and like I get a little like, I'm a little nervous, but really, like, once I get in there and start acting, I'm completely fine.
It's interesting because like we know a lot of musicians, and it's kind of funny that a lot of them are like shy when you meet them off stage, but when they're on stage, they just completely it doesn't scare them at all. They're just right in it. So.
Yeah, and a lot of people do get nervous, which is completely normal. Every single one of my students, for the most part, has stage fright, but I don't, so I can't really relate to that. I've never really had stage fright.
Do you have it up until the moment you open your mouth?
No, not even.
You don't
like,
even have, like, you're not anxious before you go
Not
on.
really. Like, I could be backstage waiting, and I'm kind of just like, I get in the groove, and I'm like, all right, I'm doing a show. This is awesome.
Like an athlete, it's like, it's go time.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's crazy to me. Everyone else, like, they're freaking out. They're like shaking and stomping their feet, and I'm like, I'm ready.
They're in your element.
Yeah, I'm in my element, and like, everyone, I just can't really relate to getting nervous, which is crazy because everyone's like, you don't get nervous? I'm like, no, not really. If I mess up, it's live theater. There's mess ups all the time. You know, even in like the big leagues, Broadway, they mess up. Stuff happens. So if it happens, you just got to keep going. It's just kind of like life. You know, it's like on stage is the same thing as every day. If something happens, you got to keep going.
Are you like, would you consider yourself a method actor?
It's a good question. I would say kind of a little bit, but I kind of just, I had a director recently. I just closed a college show and I didn't get a role, but I was doing props because I need the credit to graduate. So I was doing props and I just saw the director this morning and she said to me, I hope I get to see you on stage one day when you're doing more than moving props. And she was like, you know, I see potential in you. And that meant a lot to me because I was like, she believes in me, so I should believe in myself, you know, like.
And you do. If you feel like you're in your element when you're out there.
I do for the most part, but it's like, you know, like the school thing, I'm like, I let everyone kind of psych me out. I'm like, oh, they're so much more talented than me because they can sing and they can dance, but really, like, acting is mostly my thing. I can do those things too if I try really hard, but acting is my thing. So at least, like, when I went to this audition last night, knowing I was going to be performing a monologue, I was like, all right, this is my thing. Like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to kill it. And I think I did.
Are you good at memorizing?
Yeah. It's actually, like, that's crazy. I can't memorize anything when it comes to school, but I can memorize 100 pages worth of scripts, you know, like, it's insane to me how that works.
That is great. That's a lot. I mean,
what's like the preparation process for a show? Like, how much time do you need to practice before?
I mean, it is crazy. You know, we just closed our college show for this semester and we only had, I want to say 4 weeks to put it together. Auditions September 1st, first day of school, cast list comes out by Friday, and we had from like September 7th to October 18th, and that was it. Wow. And it's a lot, you know, you don't realize how much goes into it until you're really backstage or behind the scenes, but it's building a set, making costumes, putting up lights, sound cues, lighting cues. Stage manager has a ton of work to do, memorizing lines, music directors, choreographers. I mean, it is really like when people say they're putting on a production, they're putting on a production. You know, it's a lot. And it's time consuming. You know, we would stay after school every day, 5 to 10 p.m. Weekends, we had 2 8-hour-long tech rehearsals right before opening week, which is like 8 hours is a long time. By the end of that, we were all like so tired and so over it, but we put on a great show and that's what matters, and everyone loved it and we got a lot of good compliments about it, and it's fun. It is a lot of work, but at the end of the day, I'm having fun doing it. So
sweet. What's your ideal role?
Oh,
Do you have one?
If I could play any role, it would probably be Heather in Veronica's the musical. I think familiar. it would challenge me a lot because it's a big singing and dancing role. I mostly have done plays, so my main thing is that I want to be in a musical, and I don't want to be ensemble, and I don't want to be crew. I want to play a lead in a musical, which would probably take a lot of work and effort, and I'm not the best singer, but I can sing. You know, give me a chance and I can sing.
Can you be the lead in the musical if singing's not your forte, but I guess you can?
I mean, I think so. I think there are directors out there that would be willing to give me the chance.
Or can you up it? Can you go to the next level?
I think I could. You know, I think it all comes down to like practicing. You know, I take voice lessons whenever I can, and I practice dance when I can, and just rehearse my lines and rehearse monologues. And at the end of the day, it really all comes down to not really how much time you put into it, but I think it comes down to how much passion you have for it. Because I've directed shows as well, and I know that when people walk in my room to audition for me, I can see if they're passionate or if they're just there because their parents are forcing them to be there, which sadly, a lot of the times that's the case. You know, I have students who come to class and they're just like, I don't want to be here. And when I see that, I'll talk to the parents and I'll say, this isn't your kid's thing. And no matter how much you want it to be their thing, it's not. So please take them out, go get them to do something else, have them try sports, have them try cooking, have them try art, anything else, because they hate this. You know, if my mom was forcing me to go to do sports when I was little, I would have been so angry. I hate sports. I don't do sports, you know? I do theater. Theater is my sport. The closest thing I will do to a sport is horseback riding. I horseback ride, that's my sport. I do theater, that's my thing. So I think it comes down to how passionate you are and how much work you're willing to put in. Yeah,
definitely.
Do you write too, or?
I do. I have written 2 plays. And I have performed both of them with my drama studio. My mom decided back in 2018 that she was going to help me kickstart my own theater company, my own drama school. And it was going well, and then COVID. So that's unfortunate. But I directed both the shows I wrote, and got a lot of good feedback. People seem to really like it. I've always liked writing as well as kind of acting and directing. I kind of like, you know, I enjoy most of it. Like, I hate building sets. Like, I'm in this class right now called Stagecraft. If Mr. Green is seeing this, I'm so sorry, but Stagecraft is not my thing. I do not like building sets. I do not want to learn about what kind of screw we use to build a set. But for the most part, I like all aspects of theater. I recently got into doing costumes because we have to kind of try out everything at my college, which is great because we're getting a super well-rounded education for the most part. There's been some bumps in the road and some hard times with professors, so it's been a little rough for me, but I got into doing costumes and now I realize that I like to do that too. So I get off on a lot of tangents. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but
you like the whole scope.
I like, for the most part, I enjoy every aspect, and it's really cool.
So going back to the auditions, for anyone who's never been on either side of an audition, what's the process like?
So the process can range. Sometimes you find out about an audition months prior. Sometimes you find out about it days prior or one day. My most recent audition that I just went on and my new journey, because I really feel good about this, so I think I'm going to land a role, I hope so, is you find out about it and you get on it. You start memorizing what you need to memorize. You start listening to music. You start reading and rereading and diving into this monologue or this dialogue, whatever you're going to be reading. Sometimes they provide you with materials, sometimes they do not, and you have to find materials on your own, which sometimes is a good thing and sometimes it's not a good thing.
Like what? They'll say like, what's an example if they don't give you materials? If
they don't give you materials, they'll say, come with a 2-minute monologue prepared.
Of anything. In any accent.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. My most recent show, they were like, if you can do an accent, do an accent. If you can't do an accent, that's fine too. So it's very interesting. It is a process. Once you find out about it, you start rehearsing. You show up at the audition and you get psyched out by everyone else in the room, but you do the audition and then
is it like TV?
Wait.
like I'm thinking of Entourage, everyone's walking around talking to themselves like before
no,
they're about to go
that's
in?
very
like they're holding their paper.
That's kind of just the TV, I feel like. I mean, definitely, like, there are some people that are very, like, they'll get in their mode and they'll get to themselves and do that. There are some people like that. But I think for the most part, like, you go in, you kind of feel it out. Maybe you practice. Maybe you talk to other people, you know. Maybe you sit on your phone. I do that because I'm like, I don't want to talk to these people. I don't know who they are. And I don't want to talk. I just want to focus and get ready. So it's different for everyone, you know. Some people get really freaked out. Some people are like, I've done this 1,000 times, you know. And at the end of the day, the worst thing that happens is you don't get a role. I've dealt with that my entire life, you know, but I've also gotten some pretty awesome roles. So it's like, it balances out. You have to be able to accept that you're not always going to be the lead and you're not always going to get the role you want, but also the ensemble or the crew is so important. The production team, everything is important. If we didn't have lighting crew, stage crew, costumes, we wouldn't have a show. So everything that you do in the theater world is important. Yeah.
What did you have one?
No, say like what advice do you have to...
Well, okay, before we go there, I was going to say, what's the goal? Like, is it like your dream is to be... I don't know, what's a famous Broadway show? Like on Broadway?
like
Mamma Mia?
Phantom of the Opera or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of keep switching my goals. Like at first I was like, I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to be on TV. Tried that for a little while. Did not work out because the industry is horrible. So personally, coming from experience, I would not recommend getting involved in that just because it's a really shitty industry. But then I was like, okay, well, if I can't do that, maybe I could be on Broadway. And then now that I've seen a bunch of Broadway shows, I'm like, that might be tough. I'm not really a singer and a dancer, so I would have to be on like an off-Broadway like play. But I think my main goal is to grow my small business and my theater company because for as long as I can remember, I've wanted to own my own theater and be my own boss. Because I've had a lot of problems job-wise because theater is very time-consuming, so bosses get angry about that, or I don't like to listen to rules, and it sounds bad, but I'm just not a rule follower. I want to go do my own thing, you know. I don't want to be conformed to, like, societal norms. I want to do what I want to do, and this company, if it gets big, would give me the chance to do that. And also, I want to teach, so I would like to kind of be like CEO and a teacher, you know. I love teaching.
And have a bunch of teachers like at your school.
Yeah, that's the goal. Right now, I'm actually teaching with one of my old teachers. She reached out to me and was like, I haven't heard from you in a while, but I need a teacher for one of my classes. Would you be interested? And I was like, hell yeah, I'd be interested. So getting back into teaching after COVID has been really great because I missed it a lot during COVID.
Oh God, were you doing like Zoom?
Zoom productions was definitely, you know, it was an interesting time for everybody, but for actors, like that whole thing of like being on Zoom and putting on a show over Zoom. The last Zoom show I finished right before COVID kind of started subsiding a bit and we started getting back out into the real world. At the end of the show, I turned off my computer and kicked it off my table because I was like, I am so sick of this. If I have to get on Zoom one more time and put on a production, I'm going to be very unhappy because it's just totally different.
No,
you can't feel that realness.
Not at all. It's like, it was just kind of like a joke.
The audio sucks.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a joke. Like I was doing it because I knew I had to, but it was just like a joke, you know, compared to the real theater world. We were all like, so what is this? You know, it was so weird for us.
And the lag too, that's the worst. The
God.
delay. Like,
yeah, no, it was not good. It was just an absolute wreck, and I was like so angry. I was just like, I hate this. I want to go perform on a real stage, you know? So it's been really good to get back to performing and teaching after COVID ended because it's like my whole life. So like doing that Zoom stuff, I was so unhappy and I missed it. So it's good to be back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
So the plan basically graduate.
Yep.
Then audition as much as you can.
Yeah, pretty much.
Open a spot.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yep.
All right, good. So we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right, good. So like Ryan was getting to, we like to get some advice. So maybe someone's growing up without a father like you. What's some advice you would give to someone like that?
I would say it's hard. It's going to be hard. It's never going to go away. And grieving is not a linear thing. You're not going to get better and all of a sudden you're fine. You're going to grieve for your entire life. You're going to miss this person for your entire life. It's going to leave a hole in your heart for your entire life. And I would say at the end of the day, you kind of just have to keep going, even when it's really hard. Some days are harder than others. Some days you miss a person more than other days. But at the end of the day, it's important to kind of keep going. And I live for the people that have passed away in my life because unfortunately, a lot of them were young. My dad was young. He was 38. So I kind of live every day for the people in my life who have passed away. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
Anything you didn't say you want to say?
No, I think that's it.
All right, wonderful. Ryan, anything you want to say?
I think we're good.
All right, wonderful. Thanks, Steve.